And welcome back to Legal Matters, everyone. I'm your host, Alan Jones, and with me now is Mark Brynteson, the managing attorney with the American law firm. As I mentioned earlier tonight, Legal Matters is a half-hour informational news call-in show devoted to a wide variety of legal topics of interest to State Line viewers. We have attorneys standing by now to take your telephone call at the number on your screen. They'll provide you with free information regarding your issue. So call now and throughout the next hour. Our opening statement tonight will be talking about more personal injury 101, and we'll also be talking about estate planning. But first, let me remind you of the multiple practice areas that the American law firm concentrates in. The American law firm is a general practice law firm that concentrates in divorce and family law cases, bankruptcy matters, personal injury claims, criminal traffic and DUI issues, wills, trust and probate matters, real estate and business transactions, along with immigration and naturalization services. So feel free to call now to discuss any of these areas with attorneys standing by. Now, before we get started tonight, Mark, tell the audience a little bit more about the American law firm.
Well, at the American law firm, we want to have attorneys that limit the number of areas they practice in so they can be very proficient in those areas. Second, we want them to like the areas they're practicing, and you can look at it similar to physicians. Some are family practice doctors, some are surgeons. We want our attorneys to focus in areas that they really like doing and limit it to just a few areas, and that way the client benefits greatly from having an attorney that focuses in specific areas.
Okay, Mark. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about personal injury cases. So first, start off and describe the legal process of a personal injury case.
Well, probably the initial part of it, when somebody's hurt right at the accident scene. The reason that's important is that's where all the evidence is at that would go to a jury later on if you have to try the case and can't settle it. I can't tell you how many times that it's been an intersection accident. One of the parties was ticketed, not our client, and then 6 months later the insurance company denies liability because they got to the client first. They came to see us maybe 6 months later, and now the insurance company's denying liability because they're insured's telling them that they had a green light, and all the witnesses have went away. You can't find them, so you don't have the facts that you need to prove your case. The insurance company loves it when somebody does not go to an attorney right away so that they can preserve the facts and evidence for later on, and they will take advantage of it.
That seems almost unethical, but I guess it goes along with the business aspect of it, then, I suppose.
Absolutely. Think of how many cases a year, if they could do that, and they win or pay out a lot less, how much money they save every year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. Well, what kind of knowledge is required in dealing with or even settling a personal injury case?
Well, for example, there's what's called subrogation. In most states, subrogation is something that is allowed by state statute. And what that means is if your health insurance company initially pays your medical bills, they have the right to be paid back from any settlement you receive from the negligent party's insurance company. And I can give you a good example. A friend of mine out in Virginia several years ago had a case where the value was about $150,000, $160,000. The person was trying to settle it on their own, and they ended up settling for like $30,000. The insurance company didn't tell them, though, that there was $30,000 in medical bills, and the health insurance company that had paid all her bills took all that money in the settlement. She didn't get anything, and the claim was really worth $150,000, and she was trying to be nice, trying to be cooperative, and she ended up not getting anything.
That's too bad.
It was.
That's very sad. So you have to have that information and that background that of what the case is than just trying to be nice.
Well, I've had other cases like that too, where they come to us late, they've already settled, we can't do anything for the client, and they end up owing the insurance company because they settled for an amount that was less than what they should have, and the company says, well, that's your problem, pay us back. So there's a lot of trap doors for an injured person in a personal injury case.
Sure, and that's where the necessary, the purpose of an attorney comes into play.
Yes.
You know everything there is to know about that.
That's right.
Okay. Well, there's more to discuss coming up, including estate planning. And don't forget, attorneys are standing by right now. Take your call on any legal question you might have. So call the number on your screen. That's 815-394-1776. We'll be right back.
The Christmas season is upon us. Ornaments will be hung all around. Lights will be placed just right to add that perfect sparkle. The tree will be flawless from top to bottom. A warm fire burning bright to keep us warm. And neatly wrapped gifts will conjure excitement and anticipation in children's hearts. This year, as you get every detail right, trust the American law firm to do the same. From our family to yours, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And welcome back. I'm Alan Jones. With me is attorney Mark Brynteson with the American law firm. And you're watching Legal Matters, an informational and news call-in show devoted to a variety of legal topics. We have attorneys standing by right now to take your call at the number on your screen, 815-394-1776. They'll be able to provide you with free information regarding your issue, so call now. We will have attorneys standing by until 7:30 tonight. So now, Mark, we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about estate planning. Is this something that American law firm does on a regular basis?
Yes, we do. We do a tremendous amount of estate planning. And everybody thinks of estate planning as you have to have a lot of money to do it, and that's not the case. Somebody with a modest estate really needs to have a will, needs to have certain documents to make sure that if they do die, everything can be wound up and taken care of orderly. You can have some big messes after somebody dies without any estate planning documents. For instance, there's really two sets of documents, what I call pre-death and post-death. Pre-death documents are things like powers of attorney for finance and health, a living will. A living will is the pull the plug document. If you don't have that, you've probably heard across the country where millions of dollars in health care occur that wouldn't have to if they had the correct pre-death documents, and those are the powers of attorney and the living will. Then there's your post-death documents. That can be a will, a trust. Illinois has a unique document that you can use to give your house directly to heirs called a transfer on death document, transfer on death instrument. Why that's important, it used to be only the very rich by doing a trust could give their house away directly and avoid probate. But what you do in any type of estate planning, whether it's a very rich person or somebody of modest means, is you want to arrange their estate plan so they can give everything directly away, avoid probate and the probate costs. And that's really the key to estate planning, and we have estate planners that are very good at that and do it probably several times a week.
Mm-hmm. So how do you determine the kind of estate plan that someone needs? Do they need all of those documents that you were talking about, or do they need, or can they pick and choose, I guess? Is it a menu kind of thing?
Menu type of thing. We'll recommend, for instance, I've been practicing since the 1980s, and what I would have told somebody in the 1980s is totally different than now, especially if medical technology can keep us alive for a long time, even when we don't have any more meaningful life. One of the examples I use all the time in clients when I'm consulting about an estate plan is if I go home that night and somebody goes through a red light and T-bones me and my brain isn't working anymore, the part that makes me me isn't working, but the part that allows my heart to beat is, with a little help. I don't want to lay in the bed and become a blob of jelly, basically. Mm-hmm. I want the cord pulled and let's have the funeral, and I don't want my loved ones to have to deal with that. So the pre-death documents are probably just as important, if not more important today, than a will or a trust.
So you have to think about, I guess, what your particular needs are, and I guess that's where family needs to come together and discuss what they want, what they need. Like you said, if they come into a medical situation like that, do I want you to pull the plug? Do I want to stick around? What are my choices?
And that's absolutely another one. My wife and I did our estate plan when we were in our early 30s. We had 3 kids at that time. And one of the important decisions in the estate plan was who would be the guardians of our children if anything happened to us. Mm-hmm. So let's say we took a plane trip together and the plane crashed and we both died. Who would be taking care of the kids? Mm-hmm. where would the assets that are part of our estate go into a trust for the guardians to use for the benefit of our children? People don't think about that. If you don't have that recorded in an instrument that you control, then what happens is state law will govern how that happens.
Yeah. And that, I guess, is the probate part of it? Is that what that is? Try to explain for us exactly what probate is all about.
Well, estate planning is done to avoid as much probate as you can. Probate is the state law requirement that when you die, you have an orderly disposition of your estate. And a lot of it's really there for the creditors to marshal all the assets of your estate, define them, and pay your last bills, and then give the residue, what's ever left, to your heirs. If you control that in your estate plan, it's a much more orderly and simple process. Also, if you can give away a lot of your estate directly and not through a will, then you can do what's called a small estate affidavit probate, which is much simpler and much cheaper, and that's the whole goal of estate planning. But probate can usually last 6 months, and that's a long time for heirs to have to wind up an estate for somebody that died, especially when, you know, it's a loved one that's not there anymore, and every time that you have to deal with it, the memory comes back.
Okay. Okay, well, it's very, very interesting and probably a lot more information than people realize they need to know. I'm sure that many people have wills but don't understand there's a lot of other things that go into it as well. So that's great information. All right. Thank you, Mark. Well, the lawyers for the American law firm are standing by at 815-394-1776 to talk about whatever you want to talk about. They will talk about your legal issues and give you some information on that. And we'll be back with a closing statement when Legal Matters returns in a moment.
As we celebrate Christmas and the New Year, the American Law Firm wishes you and your family peace on earth and goodwill. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Legal Matters has been brought to you by the Crosby Law Firm and American Law Firm.
Well, let me close tonight by encouraging you to pick up the telephone and call the attorneys standing by. And because of the high volume of calls, attorneys from the American Law Firm and the Crosby Law Firm will be taking calls for about another half hour after the show ends. So if you get a busy signal, keep trying and feel free to call tomorrow during regular business hours. And for our viewers who may not need the assistance of an attorney just now, please visit the Crosby Law Firm or the American Law Firm websites with any suggestions you may have regarding subjects of interest to you and to view all of the past episodes of Legal Matters. You can also find the Crosby Law Firm on Facebook and on Twitter. So thanks very much for watching tonight's Christmas edition of Legal Matters. We hope you found it informative. Have a good night and a good holiday.
From the Crosby Law Firm family
And the American Law Firm family,
we wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
we want to thank you for watching our Christmas edition of Legal Matters.
Our law practice in particular, and the legal profession in general, is a calling and not merely a job. We are dedicated to helping you problem solve in a cost-effective, professional, and compassionate manner. The Christmas season is supposed to be a time of joy for family and friends. So let us help you resolve your issues and bring peace to you and your family during the holiday season.
Now we have some of the best and brightest attorneys throughout the northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin area standing by right now to take your calls. So please pick up the phone and call the number on your screen.
And now please take a moment to enjoy our Christmas greeting to you and to your family.
It's called One Solitary Life. It's written by Dr. James Allen Francis.
He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in still another village, where he worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. Then for 3 years he was an itinerant preacher. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never had a family or owned a house. He didn't go to college. He never visited the big city. He never traveled more than 200 miles from the place he was born. He did none of the things one usually associates with greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33 years old when the tide of public opinion turned against him. His friends ran away from him, and he was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between two thieves. While he was dying, his executioners gambled for his clothing. When he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 20 centuries have come and gone, and today he is the central figure of the human race, the leader of mankind's progress. All the armies that ever marched, all the navies that ever sailed, all the parliaments that ever sat, all the kings that ever reigned, put together, have not affected the life of man on earth as much as that one solitary life. And although hundreds of years have passed, we still celebrate the birth of that baby from Bethlehem, and the wonderful happiness of that first Christmas still lives in our hearts.
We hope you enjoyed these profound and inspirational words concerning the birth of Christ and his time on earth. So once again, from all of us, Merry Christmas!